You all just wait a minute, we'll get our positions.
Great crises which are cleanly averted rarely make great news copy, nor do heroic feats of bipartisanship make great news copy. But today we're here to celebrate both. We're here, Mr. President, because you promised to make the pensions of working Americans more secure. And now with this bill, this law, you have. Companies with underfunded pension plans are now going to have to mend their ways. We're talking about not a small number of Americans in these kinds of covered plans. 41 million working Americans will be more secure, are more secure, because this law, which, Mr. President, you determined very early on was necessary, was signed and is now the law of the land. You have affirmed, Mr. President, with your deeds, the values that you have proclaimed in your words. People who work hard and play by the rules deserve a fair shot at the American dream. When you came here 2 years ago, you saw a storm cloud on the horizon, and that was a problem of underfunding of pension plans. Companies that had a little bit too much wiggle room under the old laws. They were underfunding their plans, and the problem of underfunding was getting worse and worse. And you asked your administration, you asked that we immediately commence to find what the facts were to get a bill, and you shepherded that bill through, and we got it through. Now, most of us were raised to believe in the ideal which you have stated over and over again, that if you play hard, if you work hard and play by the rules, not play hard, if you work hard and play by the rules, you can make it in society. And our parents passed that down to us, and we have passed it on to our kids. Anybody who worked hard and played by the rules had a fair chance for a sound income and eventually a secure retirement. People with the drive and the discipline to make the most of their opportunities had a clear field to succeed. Now, corporate America backed that bargain too. Employees who worked hard and gave it their all could be reasonably secure. They would enjoy more security as their firms gained success. If the company did well, their jobs were reasonably secure, their wages would rise, and a healthy pension plan would be waiting at retirement. But as the economy has changed, as values have come under assault, as making it into the middle class has become more difficult, that simple bargain, work hard, play by the rules, get ahead, has started to break down. The gap between pension promises and pension funds grew wider. Too many workers and retirees counting on hard-earned pensions found out the money simply wasn't there. Until this law, there's been too much wiggle room in the pension funding rules, letting some employers wiggle out of their obligations altogether. In some cases, putting those obligations on taxpayers, on the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, letting taxpayers, leaving the taxpayers holding the bag. Right now, 8 million American workers are in underfunded pension plans, and that is going to change with this new law. With the Retirement Protection Act of 1994, that piece of the bargain is being restored. With this new law, which had broad bipartisan support in Congress, we can finally reverse the underfunding trend that has plagued the pension system for 2 decades. Pension promises will be kept for working Americans. I want to thank some of the people whose support and activity over the last 2 years has made this possible. In the audience this afternoon are representatives from several organizations that were instrumental in making the law a reality. I'd like to recognize in particular the United Steelworkers of America, the American Association of Retired Persons, the National Council of Senior Citizens, the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare, the National Senior Citizens Law Center. And I also want to recognize several people who have had pension troubles themselves and who have been advocates for others. They are here in the room. Many of them have traveled a long way. I'd like to give them all a hand, and maybe those of you who are here, you can just stand up, put your hand up, and be recognized. I also want to thank, with a great deal of sincerity and really awe, the head of the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation, the executive director, Marty Slate, Les Samuels, the assistant secretary of the Treasury for tax policy, many other people, very, very hardworking people who have made this possible, made this law a reality. I now like to introduce Marvin Clark, who for 34 years worked for Hanlon loading chemicals on trucks and railroad cars. When Hamlin Chemical failed, so did Hamlin Chemical's pension plan. Just 2 years ago, Mr. Clark came from his home in West Virginia to testify before Congress on the need for pension reform. And today, Mr. Clark, we are delivering for you. Mr. Clark.
I am Marvin Clark. I live with my wife and daughter in Moundsville, West Virginia. I work for Hanlon Group on shift work loading chemicals on trucks, railroad cars, and barges. I was a member of the Oil, Chemical, and Atomic Workers International Union, Local 3586. The work was very hard and very dangerous, and I often worked extra hours. For 34 years, my job provided a good living for me and my family, and I was thankful for that. No one could have been happier than I was on the day I retired. My happiness lasted 1 full year, and Hanlon Chemical declared bankruptcy. The very same month, I was informed my pension plan was broke and that the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation had been notified. For 4 months, I had no income. Then I received my checks from the PBGC. The problem was I received $700 less per month because my full pension was not guaranteed. For all the years I worked for Hanlon, I didn't know that my pension was not fully funded or that my benefits were not fully guaranteed until this happened. On February 4th, 1993, I was honored when I was asked to appear before the House Ways and Means Subcommittee chaired by Congressman J.J. Pickle of Texas. This brings me to where I stand today, a very proud participant in the passage of the Retirement Protection Act that was signed by President Clinton. I know this new law won't be of a direct help to me, but I'm glad I could be some little help so that others won't have to go through what I've been through. I want to thank you, Mr. President, Secretary of Labor, and the people at PBGC for getting this law through and for the time today we have to celebrate it. Thank you.
And now I'd like to introduce Paul Edward Wood, who worked 30 years for Western Union. When Western Union went bankrupt, its pension fund was taken over by another company, and the plan is still underfunded by several $100 million. But this new law will significantly speed up the funding of his plan. Mr. Wood?
I'm a retired middle manager of what once was Western Union. I retired from there in 1984. Western Union, as the Secretary mentioned, has since gone through the bankruptcy courts, and our pension plan is still underfunded by several $100 million, as you said. During the last 4 years, the wife and I have literally been on pins and needles wondering what to expect next. During that time, thank goodness the PBGC was there providing us a safety net in case this didn't really happen as it did. It worked out well for us largely because of the efforts of the PBGC. Finally, now it appears there's a comprehensive plan in place to plug the loopholes and ensure retirement plans are more than pieces of paper. I can remember when I was 25 years old and ready to show the world what I could do. Then retirement was, pretty far removed from my mind. But those of us here who have been there when a company goes belly up, we know what the Retirement Protection Act means. I think my wife will be quite appreciative of your saving what little hair I have left, too. I'd personally like to thank the President, the lawmakers who supported this, Secretary of Labor, Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, and the entire administration. Thank you.
And now let me introduce the man who is responsible for making sure that this law became a reality, who envisioned the law, and who is and continues to be the champion of hardworking Americans, the President of the United States.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. After that kind introduction, I'm loath to say what I was about to say, which is I'm afraid the headline on this story will be, Rice comes out for playing hard. But I think people who work hard should also be able to play hard. So I want to thank Paul Wood for his story and Marvin Clark for his testimony and his long battle to make sure the country did something to help people so that there wouldn't be other people in the situation he finds himself in. I want to thank the steel workers and the senior citizens groups and all the others who were mentioned by Secretary Rice. I'd like to especially thank someone who is not here, my longtime friend Jake Pickle, who retired from the Congress and who left this as his last legacy in a long career of helping people with their own lives. I'd like to thank another longtime friend of mine who's still here. That's maybe a disability in this town, but Marty Slade has done a wonderful job at the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation. I'll never forget the first time Hillary told me about Marty Slade. She said, "That's the smartest guy I ever met in my life. He'll find a way to solve any kind of problem, and you have done a fine job, and we're grateful to you." And I'd like to thank someone whose name I don't know, and I've been trying to find out before this moment. I'd like to thank the person in the Richmond debate in 1992 who asked President Bush and Ross Perot and Bill Clinton about the problems of underfunded pensions, and first got my attention on this issue. I wish I don't know who that person was, but I am deeply indebted, and now so are several million other Americans, to that person for bringing this issue personally to me in a very direct way. 2 years ago from tomorrow, I became president with a commitment to try to restore the American dream for all Americans and to make sure that we enter the next century as the strongest country in the world, a force for peace and freedom and democracy, but most important of all is one which, in a very different world, would keep the American dream alive for all of our people. When I signed the Retirement Protection Act into law last month, it was almost completely unnoticed because at the end of the year it had to go through in the comprehensive legislation that involved the passage of the GATT trade agreement. And we wanted to do this today because this act was so profoundly important to so many millions of Americans. And it says a lot about what we are trying to do here in Washington. This is part of a new economic policy designed to help the American people stay ahead in a world economy that is changing so rapidly that while it offers vast new benefits to people, it also is very frightening to a lot of people and causes too much insecurity and unsettling for people who have worked hard and done the right things all their lives. It gives the American taxpayers a more effective, more efficient, and more disciplined government. And this bill furthers what I have called my own contract with America, the New Covenant. It says that people who act responsibly should be rewarded. The Retirement Protection Act says that people deserve a pension system that they rely on. They deserve employers who take actions to be worthy of their own trust and the labor that they give them year in and year out. They deserve a government that will protect them and stand by them, a government that is their partner. It says to employers that they can no longer gamble with the retirement savings of their own employees, allowing pension plans to become dangerously underfunded, expecting taxpayers to bail them out. It means that responsible businesses with well-funded plans will no longer have to carry an unfair share of the burden of the insurance costs for businesses who do not do the same. As a result of the new law, the funding level of large underfunded pension plans will be increased dramatically so that the benefits can be paid as they were promised. The National Pension Insurance System will remain secure. Employees will get better information warning them when their plans could be at risk. In stabilizing the federal insurance system, we use the power of government to avert a potential crisis, protecting millions of retirees, corporate pension plans, and the taxpayers from huge potential losses. Today, we can be grateful that the security of our pensions are strong and growing stronger, thanks to the Retirement Protection Act and the work of all of you in this room who did so much to make it happen. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.